But anyway, everything was set up. We thought, right, it's going to be brilliant. Imagine the great surprise people are going to have when they announce it, presumably a few days before the event. Thorin's going to be the desk host of this event. The day I am set to fly to China, I get a call in the morning saying that Riot Global Office, when they got wind of all of this, I don't know why the Chinese people would wait till the last minute. I would assume it's because in the past they were allowed to do things their way, and it's at the end someone just signs off the approval at the top. When it got to them, they just killed the deal, instantly dead flat. It's over, no discussion. And so the Chinese side, the LPL, were entirely on board with this. They came up with this idea. They offered it. They tried to persuade me to stay even longer. And it turns out Riot Global killed their idea instantly. Has no faith in their Chinese partners, it would appear. Don't respect their judgment. Don't even respect the choices they make over their own subset of what you're doing, right? You know, if something happens after the fact, yeah, obviously you can then say, why did you do it that way? But what, you have no trust in the people who are hiring in that sense. People who know a lot more about League of Legends, by the way, than anyone in Riot Global Office, if I was to break down who these people were. I'm literally out money thanks to this bullshit. It's not just that I even got turned down and I lost the money I would have made appearing on the broadcast as my day rate, and I lost the opportunity to come on the broadcast, and they themselves were short-handed last minute when they thought they had a great setup, something unique, bring a lot of spice, bring in a Western audience with a different flavour. No, I even lost money on this scenario. Now, don't get me wrong, yeah, you know what? There's a world in which they were then trying, because the Chinese people were very, very apologetic and felt really bad about this. They were trying to figure out some other things I could do for them outside of the broadcast that, you know, could maybe make money or could do some this way. And I had to tell them, first of all, I'm sorry, like, as we've seen from this incident, you have been overruled by Riot Global. This is basically Riot Global's project. You just get some say in how you execute it. So I can't do that as a favour to you, or do that as a negotiate, as some sort of a cooperation, because really, I'm not dealing with you, am I? It's always with Riot Global. So why would I now help them out and help their broadcast be better and help them get more exposure when they've just fucked me over completely, right? I'm not going to do that. And plus, I know how esports works, and this is part of what tilts me, is I know that so many other people have been fucked over, marginalized, literally oppressed, like repressed from doing things, saying things over the years by Riot, and so few of those stories have come out exactly because of reasons like this. Because what they'll do is they'll get a good guy within the company, a guy who hasn't fucked you over, a guy who is a cool guy, a guy who says, listen, I don't agree with the way that was done, so you know what, let's sort something else out for you, let's get you something, is there anything you want? Oh, you know what, maybe we can just give you a side job, it's not as good as the job you wanted, but we can get you one anyway. Maybe I could arrange for something that you'd like, maybe there's a player you'd like me to help you get in contact with. They'll do those sorts of things, and it essentially is a type of hush money. It isn't overtly, it isn't explicitly, but the implication is, take the thing we're offering and just shut up about it. Don't say anything about the bigger thing, what we did to you, right? When some of these things happened, like you're saying, like the transition to the LCK format, so when they literally basically told you you're going to share half the broadcast, and obviously you aren't hired by Sport TV, so you're only doing half the broadcast yourself. Could you already kind of see like the writing on the wall of like, maybe I'm going to get squeezed out here, or my role's going to be limited?
Well, it was just disappointing, you know, because neither of us wanted to do less League of Legends. You know, I think Monty and I both, I think I can speak for him when I say we both love League of Legends. We love that game. We think it's great, and we loved casting it. And so to have to deal with the Riot side of things was really frustrating, because we didn't want to deal with that, you know? We wanted to just cast the game and entertain people. Neither of us ever wanted to be involved in having to, you know, deal with any of this extra outside the broadcast stuff that was caused by them. And so, yeah, I don't know. It was just really frustrating. So you combine that with then, I remember the BlizzCon that Overwatch was announced, and just seeing the trailer, seeing the gameplay trailer and the cinematic trailer, and just messaging Monty and being like, this is our game. This is going to be like our next game. You know, whatever we need to do, we need to work towards doing this game. So these two individuals basically said that the exact words were, we don't believe you bring the gravity necessary to serious matches. And that tilted me off the face of the planet, because that clearly, and it wasn't so much that they were questioning my ability to cast, but it was that they were making this empirical statement while at the same time clearly have barely ever watched anything I've ever done. Because and I said that right away, I'm like, well, I beg to differ. I think if you look at any of my playoff matches, any of that kind of stuff, you know, when it's a serious match, I do consciously put. I mean,
in the timeline, this is after you've already done many of the OGN finals, for example, that are very serious casts.
Yeah, of course. This was after the Faker What Was That moment and all that kind of stuff. So we had done a bunch of big serious finals. And so I knew that I put extra special care and attention into treating the big matches that should be treated seriously in a serious way. And so to have them be so ignorant about my casting and then make this big decision about my career, especially because earlier the year at MSI, I was told over and over again, and then throughout the year, that I would be doing Worlds that year. So I was kind of expecting it too, that because I had been told by these same individuals, oh, well, when we have you out for Worlds, et cetera, that kind of thing, So I naturally assumed, oh, okay. So then, when they said that, that was disappointing. And then he went on to say, but we can bring you out to All-Stars. And I quote, he said, where the best players in the world come to compete against. He gave me the whole advertising. And okay. I'm like, what? And I just said, you do realize I cast the best players in the world every week, right? Like, I'm the guy who casts them.
Before that, a solid year or so before, I heard through a back channel something to the gist of it was Riot are looking to see if they can maybe work less with Monty, and maybe the implication was maybe even push you out. And at the time,
not surprising.
You couldn't really see how that would happen. You were had a stronghold in Korea. Korea was the number one region in terms of the best teams. What do you think that was something present, and that there was some sort of a force within Riot that was figuring out, is there a way we can cut this guy out?
Yes.
And reduce his influence?
Of course. I think that especially once I began to own, I had so much power for somebody who wasn't a part of Riot. And I think that as a company that I see, not as a company, again, most of my criticisms for Riot are directly related to the esports management and not to the production, which has always been good, or the rest of the company, which I think, their different departments behave in different ways. So my criticism, when I say Riot, I really just mean the esports management at Riot. And I think that that department is absolutely obsessed with control, and they behave like a tyrant. They don't treat their teams, the teams that participate in their leagues, like partners. They dictate exactly what should happen. They make them sign contracts that are very unfavorable to the teams, in my opinion. And with me, I think I became a problem for them because, first off, I did things behind the scenes when I owned a team that were I tried to hold Riot accountable to their own rule sets, and they didn't like that very much, even when they were violating their own rules within the LCS. They, I think, saw me as a threat because I was causing them issues and causing them to have to do more work.
Despite your relationships, despite all the people you knew, aside from all the Riot stuff, how the career that you'd had, it felt like when you left, there was almost like a deafening silence of no fanfare. I mean, I didn't see other casters even say, oh, goodbye, thanks everyone. I didn't see other figures saying it. It felt like it was almost eerie that no one said anything. Did you feel that?
They were, I think, yeah, of course I did. But I think a lot of the talent and the people that I still am friends with and respect were afraid. Riot, again, is very controlling, and they instill fear in people that work with them, and that's their main method of retaining this talent, I think. And based on previous models, for example, so when we were talking about my ban, which was almost a year ago, before they banned me, they were in a room with all of the casters, all the talent, because remember, this happened during MSI last year. And they had all the talent in a room, and the esports management told all of the talent not to tweet anything about my ban or comment on my ban at all. And I think when you're given that kind of message, that looks like they are ostracizing me very deliberately.
It's just that from the law of probability, if I assign different probabilities, it seemed to me pretty likely that he was in some way going on there, and there's some sketchy shit there, and that in some way he probably was some sort of owner. That's just the way it looked from the outside. Now, I would obviously need to make a more firm judgment, some proof, some details. Unfortunately, Riot hasn't given you any proof whatsoever. You know that when Riot bans people, sometimes they would say, oh, in 98% of games he was toxic, or in maybe some rare case, I mean, they might even like show a screenshot to show how toxic someone was or whatever. We don't get anything here. We get literally zero facts, zero pieces of evidence. We're just told there's evidence and facts, and then we are told Riot's interpretation of those facts or evidence. We never get any of the facts or evidence, nor, aside from the people involved in the case, does anyone outside, as far as I know any of the facts or evidence. Therefore, we're just supposed to trust Riot's interpretation. It's just left incredibly vague. And yet, for any of us to make these judgments, we would need these facts and evidence. Does anyone remember how Riot dealt with the selfie/Corey incident with MYM? If you remember when Richard brought that story out and some of the things he said, essentially, he brought these issues up and he was trying to push this so that Riot would do something about it. And it wasn't until he almost had like a smoking gun of some sort of like recorded evidence and all the rest of it that they would do anything about it. They were essentially behind the scenes sort of telling this person like, oh, just get on with it and play with him, or, oh yeah, sorry about that problem, maybe we'll look into it or whatever. They didn't really seem to care about a situation where it was very serious and a guy was literally telling a young kid who's playing video games like, I'll take your fucking mother's house, essentially. That was like the implication, right? So it's interesting that they've suddenly changed their tune on this. Now I know already the people who are the blind Riot Kool-Aid drinkers of the cult of Riot, of the cult of the Red Fist, I guess, will just be like, yeah, but that is showing that Riot are always improving and they are looking to learn from their mistakes. Yeah, okay, mate, you guys say that every time about every issue. It's just, what happens is you're just not willing to admit that sometimes they deal with things inconsistently, which is the case. Then I'll skip into some other areas of journalism, right? Another one that was a classic is Riot gets involved with conflict of interest. So basically, years ago, it's now, funnily enough, owned by TSM as the Blitz app. But you right, remember, they brought up this website, Blitz, right? And again, by the way, it had some pretty good people, actually. Like the guy, I can't remember the name of the guy, Mark something, who was doing like the interviews, seemed pretty legit, you know? He had a pretty good manner to him. He was doing in-depth interviews with people. What he didn't reveal, of course, that I, of course, came across, was that basically Riot, or some Riot people, were like some of the initial investors in this site, which then was doing interviews with people like Monte Cristo, where the premise is they're criticizing Riot or contrasting Riot games, League of Legends, with Overwatch by Activision Blizzard without ever disclosing this information. And are you ready for the punchline? Because this is going to be, again, another trend you're all probably going to recognize. When I outed this, right, they didn't, Rich, actually go the angle of like, well, this is a lie, it's not true. What they did is they, on their main account, publicly thanked me for reminding everyone that there was the thing that they should have mentioned. And they did a Riot Games move, which is Riot Games move is you just remove timeline. You just go, it's a good job you guys have got mad about this, because I intended actually to remove it anyway. And now that you're mad, I'll just remove it immediately, which I was always going to do anyway. And so in a mad way, you don't even give the other person credit for calling you out, and you pretend you always were the good guy. So again, our field ain't a great one for that. There's a lot of fuckery there. I just don't find this to be like professional commissioner behaviour. Just posted on Reddit and Twitter about it. No official statement. What's your job? To make official statements and be the commissioner and explain why you made decisions. You're not some dictator. We're not just your slaves who have to do what you say. We can question you and tell you what, if you don't tell us, we can speculate. Yeah, that's sort of the way the world works. So she confirms it all, right? And then says they have verified claims. They have verified the nature of the emergency. What? Like, yeah, sure, you could have some sort of a psych evaluation, I guess, or maybe an incident's happened with him, or you know, I mean, who knows? Maybe something's happened with a family member, or something's happened elsewhere, and it's like, who can know what's going on? The problem is, who can know what's going on? Like, how could Riot confirm that in a way that I would allow them to potentially change the rules? I'm not certain, but it seems like it contextually. How could they confirm to be able to essentially just go, this rule book, that didn't count because he's got mental health problems? What? I'm sorry, you're going to need a lot more than that. Now, you don't have to tell us, but if you don't, we can just assume you might be cheating. Is this game 6 of the Kings versus the Lakers in 2002 playoffs? Are you the NBA refs? Have you determined that the Lakers do need 1 million free throws and that you should call every phantom foul? Come on, man. And I'm a Kobe fan, but I don't care. I'll point that out as BS. Now, the Game 7 win was legit, but that Game 6 one was a disgrace. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? And that's in part thanks to my Patreon community, the Skrilluminati. So this video was kindly supported by Frisky, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Jensen Goh, Tobias Bernasconi, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Toucan, Tosh, and you know it if you've ever seen my videos before. If you don't get to know it, because a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Why not ask a question for my video AMA? Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest? Maybe you want to see who the upcoming guests are on my shows, on my interviews. Or do you want to be part of one of those lengthy esports discussions where you set the table of topics? Well, if any of those perks or others catch your fancy, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today, where? Via the Patreon link in the description box.